We got to start holding Jake Paul accountable for that. Not because he can't fight, because we know he can. Do you understand?
It wasn't the best. It wasn't the best fight. It just wasn't the best thing to watch, was it? Like it was just, yeah, it weren't great.
Like he got out of first gear. Jake Paul was just on pure survival mode from round 1 right through to round 6. I don't know if he's got a moral victory going 6 rounds. Maybe he has. People might give him credit for going 6 rounds. But he got in there and just survived. He just went in there and ran like a chicken from round 1 right through to round 6 when he got splattered.
Smith mocked Jake Paul after his knockout loss to Anthony Joshua. He shut down the idea that a YouTube star lasting 6 rounds is impressive. Smith pointed out that Jake is no longer just a content creator. He is a professional boxer who has trained for years in real camps with real coaches. According to Smith, Jake can't hide behind the YouTuber label when he steps in the ring with an elite fighter like Joshua.
Boxing trainers for years. He takes the sport very seriously.
Thank you. So let me ask you, that's the question I have, because great kid, great businessman, by the way, amazing, and I know how he does all this, the character and the persona. We keep saying that he doesn't want to be a boxer. He's not a boxer, but then
Jake Paul is a boxer.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my point.
Exactly. He's a boxer.
He can fight. He can fight. I respect it. So go in there against fighters. You should be climbing the ladder towards those other fighters and taking the sport seriously to the point where you're fighting.
Sam Jones didn't hold back when reacting to Jake Paul's loss. While some fans called it brave because Jake lasted several rounds, Jones completely rejected that view. He said the fight was painful to watch, not because of violence, but because it was so one-sided and awkward. Jones admitted Jake showed courage by stepping into the ring, but said courage alone doesn't make a good fight. In his view, the bout had no rhythm, no real exchanges, and no danger for Joshua. Praising Jake for simply lasting, he said, lowers the standard of professional boxing. Jones also made a clear point about surviving versus competing. Running, holding, and avoiding punches may help someone last longer, but it doesn't show high-level boxing skill. He believes Jake spent most of the fight doing exactly that, avoiding action instead of creating offense.
You're knocking out and breaking Jake Paul's jaw. Just talk to me right now about the fight itself and then we'll break it down.
Bit of a crap fight, if we're all honest. It was like watching Jaws 2 when all the kids went out on their boats and they were in the middle of the sea and the shark was just surrounding the boat, just like that's what it was like. It was just like a shark circling its prey and just like it was like nibbling and eventually got him. But Jake Paul showed big plums in there, no matter what anybody says about him, because I've seen people say, yeah, he went in there to survive. Yeah, okay, he went in there to survive. He's a guy that's been boxing a couple of years against a unified champion of the world who can really punch. Yeah, it wasn't the best fight. It just wasn't the best thing to watch, was it? Like it was just, yeah, it weren't great. I just want to see now Tyson Fury against Anthony Joshua. I think at the stages of their careers they're at, AJ and Tyson Fury, we don't need to see interim fights, Andrew. We don't need to see interim fights because they're just potential banana skins. We want to see two of the best heavyweights of this era going at it, and we need to see it next. Not.
Carl Froch gave one of the harshest reactions of the night. He called the fight a disgrace and questioned why Jake Paul was getting any praise at all. Froch said the response to the fight shows a worrying shift in boxing, where fame and social media matter more than skill. According to Froch, Jake didn't win rounds, didn't apply pressure, and never threatened Joshua. He argued that credit should come from competing, not just lasting. Froch described the fight as a one-sided chase, with Joshua forced to hunt down a defensive opponent. He said this style should not be celebrated in professional boxing. For Froch, boxing is about taking risks to win, not just avoiding damage.
He counted out, knocked out, whatever, however you want to call it. It wasn't a bad knockout. It wasn't an El Sparko. He wasn't rendered unconscious, but he got done. He got it on the chin. He went over. He didn't beat the count. He was sort of up on his feet. But if I'm honest, the whole fight was terrible, wasn't it? It was just so bad. It was just shit, wasn't it? A proper bad fight for AJ. And let me start with AJ. AJ was following him around the ring a little bit, sort of pouring with a jab, putting the jab on the shoulder of Jake Paul, sort of putting him in the corner and not really pulling the trigger on the right hand. He didn't seem to didn't seem to be motivated to go in there and just smash Jake Paul into oblivion in the first 1 or 2 rounds, which I think he could have done. But he's been out the ring 15 months, a bit slow on his feet, a bit ring rust maybe, and he was it's hard. When I used to spar novice amateurs, even when I was a world champion pro, if you're not motivated, sometimes you can have a couple of bad rounds and you're sort of looking at your opponent and a jab hits you or right hand hits you. And I think AJ was in a bit of a daze early on, just walking him around, touching the jab on his shoulder, not really pulling the trigger on the right hand. Didn't look like he got out of first gear. Jake Paul was just on pure survival mode from round 1 right through to round 6. I don't know if he's got a moral victory going 6 rounds. Maybe he has. People might give him credit for going 6 rounds. But he got in there and just survived. He just went in there and ran like a chicken from round 1 right through to round 6 when he got splattered. And it's like, it's just, you can't really justify what he's done, because this is supposed to be a professional sanctioned boxing match. And I think it brings the integrity of the sport down when somebody like AJ, who's a 2-time world champion, can't get in there and just completely dismiss somebody like Jake Paul, who I've said for ages can't fight. He's not a professional boxer. It's just AJ following him around, touching him to the shoulder. Round 1 came and went. Round 2 was much of the same, bit slow. I think AJ got caught with an overhand right at one stage, but sometimes when you're out in the rain, you're going to get wet. He was following him around, taking his eye off the ball, probably a bit undermotivated, thinking, what's this guy doing that's in front of me? Jake Paul was just running.
True Geordie looked at the situation from a bigger picture. He said the fight told fans very little about Jake Paul's real boxing ability. While Jake showed toughness, the gap between him and Joshua was so wide that it made evaluation impossible. True Geordie argued that the mismatch was too extreme to measure Jake's progress. Because Jake was overwhelmed both physically and technically, fans still don't know what level he truly belongs at. He also criticized the fight structure, saying boxing isn't meant to be a constant chase. Even if Jake had gone the distance, Geordie believes the fight still wouldn't have been competitive and may have hurt Jake's credibility as a serious boxer.
When one guy isn't wanting to engage, it's really hard to pin them down and hurt them, because they're not basically contributing to the sport. We're supposed to be fighting each other, not, you running away from me and me having to run after you. And we've seen this before in other boxing matches. It just makes it a very difficult night for the guy who's trying to be the aggressor, especially when you've got a ring that big and the guy who you're fighting is much smaller and therefore can just get on his bike and run for as long as he can. Now, to be fair to Jake, he did land some shots. He didn't just run. But generally, the game plan was to run a lot, hold whenever he had to. He dropped his knees for a fucking takedown quite a lot. I thought it was quite ironic that when he's fighting MMA guys, he boxes them, but when he's fighting a boxer, he was going for the wrestling. And there was a lot of criticism for those tactics, right? Online, even the commentary.
Duke McKenzie gave a direct and experience-based take. He said his comments weren't driven by hate, but by reality. That's it for today's video. Stay tuned, and see you next time.